Let's kick things off today with a deep dive into Sabrina Carpenter's Espresso. We've got a whole stack of articles here breaking down the lyrics and the themes, and I gotta say, this song, it's more than just a catchy pop tune.
Oh, it definitely is. You might think a whole deep dive on just one song, but I think you'll find that Espresso is like this shot of inspiration. It's packed with ideas about ambition, resilience, relationships, and really how to just thrive in this crazy, fast-paced world that we're all living in now.
Absolutely. And you know what really sets the tone right from the start? That espresso metaphor, right? It's not just about the caffeine, it's about capturing that energy and intensity of modern life, that feeling of always being on the go.
It's so relatable. I mean, think about those lyrics. Can't slow down. It's not my style. Faster than caffeine, just my vibe. It's like she's speaking for everyone who's ever felt, overwhelmed by the pace of life.
It's true. It's like she's saying, yeah, life is a whirlwind, but I'm going to ride this wave and make the most of it. And I think that brings us to our first big lesson or takeaway from Espresso, this idea of pacing ourselves within the momentum. It's not about slowing down, but it's about finding your rhythm within the speed.
It's a really interesting shift, wouldn't you say? From the traditional idea of, work-life balance. It's more about acknowledging that life is can be fast-paced and figuring out how to move with that energy rather than constantly trying to fight against it.
Right. One of the articles actually suggested breaking down your goals into smaller milestones, sort of like taking sips of espresso instead of trying to gulp the whole thing down at once. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a fantastic strategy. It's about finding that balance between staying focused on the immediate task at hand, but also keeping that bigger picture in mind.
Yeah, it's those small wins that keep you motivated and moving forward. And another thing that struck me about Espresso is Carpenter's confidence. It's seriously contagious. Her delivery is so bold and unapologetic, it makes you want to stand a little taller and own your space a little more.
Right. And what I find interesting is it's not about just having this innate natural confidence. The song seems to frame it as a choice, as if she's saying, hey, I might have flaws, but I'm going to own them and shine anyway.
I love that. It's about choosing to be confident. I've been trying to add affirmations into my morning routine to sort of give myself a boost of confidence for the day. What about you? Have you ever tried affirmations?
I have, and it can be a really powerful tool, almost like giving yourself a little pep talk before you head out the door.
Definitely. Now, another theme that really resonated with me is this whole idea of embracing uncertainty. Life throws curveballs all the time, and Espresso seems to be saying, hey, instead of trying to control every little thing, learn to adapt and roll with the punches.
Yeah, I see what you mean. The song doesn't pretend life isn't chaotic.
Hmm.
It encourages us to build up that resilience muscle so we can face whatever comes our way.
It's like a surfer riding a wave. You can't control the ocean, but you can learn how to ride the waves. Speaking of riding waves, can we talk about the structure of Espresso for a minute? The song itself is so fast-paced and energetic, with those driving beats that really mirror that whole theme of living life at full speed. You can almost feel the pulse of the city in the music.
It's not a coincidence, you know. It's completely intentional. Carpenter, she aligns her musical output with the song's message and creates a truly immersive experience. And, this isn't just limited to music. You could apply this idea of synergy to anything you do in your life.
I like that. So you're saying if I'm feeling scattered and overwhelmed, maybe I should take a cue from Espresso and look for ways to create more alignment in my own life. Maybe our environments need an espresso shot of inspiration, too.
It's an interesting thought, isn't it? What if we were more deliberate about curating our surroundings to support our goals? Surrounding ourselves with tools, people, and things that inspire us and amplify our purpose.
Okay, this next topic, I'm really intrigued by this one. Relationships in the fast lane. The song seems to suggest that some relationships can actually thrive under pressure, which I think is such a fascinating idea. I'm curious to hear your initial thoughts on this.
Well, it definitely challenges the traditional idea that relationships need, calmness and stability to work. It makes you wonder what kind of connections can withstand or maybe even benefit from that kind of intensity, right?
Right, there's that one line, I think it goes in and out, you're on my mind, espresso shot, you light my fire. It's almost like a metaphor, isn't it? For relationships that actually fuel your passion and push you forward, even when everything else feels totally overwhelming.
Such evocative lyrics. It's not about finding someone who slows you down, but someone who energizes you, helps you navigate the chaos. That kind of partnership where you feel like you can conquer the world together, even when it's spinning a million miles an hour.
It really makes you think about all the different kinds of relationships in your life and how some seem to thrive under pressure while others maybe need a little more space to breathe. What do you think are the key ingredients for a relationship that can handle that intensity?
Hmm. Well, I think trust is crucial. Knowing that you can depend on each other, even when things get really hectic. And you also have to be with someone who respects your individuality, especially when you're both juggling a million things.
I see what you mean. Respect creates space for each person to thrive, even within a fast-paced dynamic. It's all about finding that balance between shared goals and individual passions, right? And all this goes back to that central theme of empowerment running through Espresso.
Absolutely. It's not just about embracing the speed, but recognizing that we have a choice in who we spend our time with and building relationships that actually support our growth and creating a life that reflects, our values and ambitions.
I like that. It's like Carpenter is giving us permission to not just survive, but to truly thrive in whatever lane we choose to be in.
It's such a powerful message. And you know what's amazing? It's the way she delivers this message with this playful energy. There's this underlying humor in Espresso that keeps things light and relatable, even when talking about these big, important ideas.
It's so true. It's like she's saying, hey, life might be crazy, but let's not forget to have a little fun with it, which I think is such an important reminder. Sometimes we can get so caught up in achieving our goals and just trying to survive the chaos that we forget to enjoy the ride.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot between ambition and, lightheartedness, between pushing ourselves towards our goals, but also embracing the absurdity of it all.
I think that's a perfect way to describe Espresso. It's a call to embrace the speed, to find joy in the journey, and to never forget that we have the power to create the lives that we want. And, I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of this song. There's so much more to unpack.
There is. We should dig a little deeper into the cultural significance of this song, because it feels like it's tapping into something much bigger than just a catchy pop tune.
Oh, I can't wait to hear your take on that. What do you say we grab another metaphorical espresso and come back to explore those ideas?
Sounds good to me. Okay, so picking up where we left off, we were saying that espresso feels like it's tapping into something, maybe something bigger, like a cultural shift.
Yeah, I'm really interested to hear what you think. What is it about the song that gives you that impression?
Well, it's like, the song celebrates this idea of always being on, right?
Mm.
That constant hustle, almost like a soundtrack for this hustle culture we see all around us now. What do you think?
Oh, totally. It's like we're all expected to run on espresso, always pushing, striving, got to be achieving all the time.
Exactly. And while there's a lot to admire about that drive, that ambition, I do think we need to acknowledge maybe the not so great side of this always on mentality.
Hmm.
It's like we've forgotten how to slow down,
Sure.
just be. I think espresso kind of highlights that tension, that back and forth between striving and just being.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, we're seeing so much burnout now, anxiety, this feeling of just being overwhelmed all the time. It's like we're all afraid to miss out, so we try to cram everything in.
Exactly. And that's where I think espresso actually offers a pretty cool perspective.
Yeah.
While it definitely embraces that, fast pace of life, it also kind of nudges us to be a little bit more intentional, to set boundaries and really make choices that support our well-being. Like a reminder that we don't have to be swept away by the current, so to speak.
That's a really good point. It's like Carpenter is giving us permission to press pause, even in the middle of all the chaos, saying it's okay to prioritize our well-being and not sacrifice it all for the sake of achieving.
Exactly. It's all about finding a sustainable pace, a rhythm that works for you.
Yeah.
And that message, it really resonates when you think about the song's target audience, right? Mostly Gen Z and millennials. I mean, that generation, they're facing so much pressure to succeed, to be connected 24/7, to have it all figured out and right now.
Yeah, the pressure is definitely on for them. So Espresso, it's like an anthem in a way, acknowledging that pressure, but also reminding them that they have the power to set their own tempo.
It's definitely empowering. And, it kind of reminds all of us that we don't have to choose between ambition and well-being. We can strive for our goals and take care of ourselves. Maybe it just takes a little more, intention.
Going back to relationships for a sec, because this is something I keep coming back to. Earlier, you said that espresso suggests some relationships can thrive under pressure. We talked about trust and respect, but what else makes a relationship not just survive, but actually grow in that kind of fast-paced, high-energy environment?
Well, I think shared values are super important. Being with someone who gets your, like, core beliefs, your principles, you're much more likely to be on the same page when it comes to decision-making, working through challenges, and just supporting each other's ambitions.
It's like having that alignment, even when you're both moving at a million miles an hour, you're both headed in the same direction, maybe just taking different roads to get there.
Exactly. It's about finding that person who, complements your journey, who gets your hustle, maybe even encourages it, but also respects your need for space and just being you.
Okay, that makes sense. So trust, respect, shared values, and a little bit of space to be yourself. That's like the recipe for a relationship that can not only handle the heat, but actually use it to grow stronger.
Nice analogy. And it all circles back to that, core theme of empowerment in espresso. It's not just about rolling with the speed. It's about realizing we get to choose who we have in our lives.
Mm.
We build relationships that actually help us grow, and we create lives that, reflect what we value and where we want to go.
What's cool is espresso doesn't give you like all the answers. It's not telling you how to live. It's more like it's starting a conversation, making us think about our own pace, our relationships and how we want to navigate this crazy, fast-paced world.
It's a good point. It's not a how-to guide. It's an invitation to think about these ideas,
Yeah.
figure out what works for you. That's what makes this deep dive so interesting. We're not just picking apart a song, but we're trying to see how it applies to our own lives,
Yeah.
asking ourselves, what does this mean for me?
I like that, taking the energy and inspiration of espresso and using it to kind of fuel our own journeys.
Exactly. And before we wrap things up, I wanted to go back to something we talked about before, that humor in espresso.
Oh, yeah. That little playful wink Carpenter throws in, even when she's talking about some pretty, deep topics. Like a reminder to not take it all so seriously.
Exactly. And I think that's such a crucial message, especially in a world that can feel so serious and pressure-filled.
Right.
Being able to find those moments of lightness, it helps us stay grounded, helps us bounce back, even when life feels totally out of control.
It's like she's saying, hey, we're all on this crazy ride together. Let's try to enjoy it.
Yeah. And that's such a refreshing perspective. It's about finding the joy, embracing the crazy, and maybe even laughing at ourselves a little bit along the way.
I love that.
Mhm.
So espresso, it's not just about embracing the speed. It's about finding those moments of joy, the connections that make us feel alive, and remembering that we're all in this together.
Well said. It's about finding that balance between pushing for what we want and just remembering to have fun along the way.
All right, we've covered so much, but I feel like we could keep talking about espresso for hours. What do you say we take a final pause, gather some closing thoughts, maybe leave our listener with a challenge?
Sounds good. I got some final thoughts brewing, something that will really resonate, I think. We'll be back in a snap.
All right, we're back, ready for that last sip of our deep dive into Sabrina Carpenter's Espresso. We've covered so much, from that fast-paced metaphor and all those tips for how to thrive in a world that just never slows down, to those relationships that, they can actually handle the pressure, and that reminder to not take ourselves too seriously, even when life feels like a whirlwind.
Yeah, it's been a good conversation. I think what really stands out to me about espresso is that it doesn't try to give you like one big answer. It sparks so many different thoughts, so many questions. It makes you really think about your own pace,
Yeah.
your values, and how you want to move through this world, with all the craziness and the speed and everything.
Yeah. It's like she's passing the mic, saying, all right, your turn. What's your story? What's your tempo? If you were writing the song of your life, what would the lyrics say?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
Espresso really does remind you that we're all in charge of our own stories.
Yeah.
We get to decide how we show up, how we connect with other people, and how we define success on our own terms.
Absolutely. It's about realizing that there's no right way to do life. What works for one person might not work for someone else, and that's okay. And espresso, it celebrates that, that individuality. It's like she's saying, find a rhythm that feels right for you.
Yeah. Embrace the speed, but don't sacrifice your well-being. Find those relationships that, light you up, and never lose sight of the joy along the way. That kind of brings us back to the humor that Carpenter weaves into the song.
Oh, yeah. That's like such a crucial part of it. It's like she's winking at you,
Right.
saying, hey, this is all pretty wild, but let's not forget to laugh. That reminder to not take ourselves so seriously, it's so important, especially when you're trying to juggle work, relationships, and, just figuring out who you are.
For sure. And it doesn't mean you ignore the tough stuff or pretend it's all perfect. It's about finding the light moments, those connections that bring you joy, and just embracing the crazy.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into espresso, what's that one key takeaway, the thing you want to leave our listeners with today? What's that espresso moment to think about?
Here's something to consider. If your life was a song, what tempo would it have? Would it be like espresso, that energetic, fast-paced beat? Or maybe something a little slower, a little more chill?
Mhm.
And what would those lyrics say about how you move through the world with all its challenges and possibilities? That's something to think about.
That's a fantastic question to leave us with. We've had so much fun exploring the ideas in espresso and pulling out all these little bits of wisdom. Remember, even a 3-minute pop song can spark a journey of self-discovery, right? And inspire you to live more intentionally. So until next time, keep that energy flowing and stay curious.